-5 plus 7 with 10 redistributed is the formula for the cabinet that is for President Bola Tinubu. Lots of conversations have been had regarding the cabinet reshuffle, the hiring, the firing, the intent, and wondering if exactly this would actually lead to a leaner budget or a more effective government. These will be one of our conversations this morning. I am Olive Emodi. You're welcome to Breakfast Central.
And I am Oluwaseyi Adegoke. Yes, it is, surprising across the country, for some of these names that have been dropped, the ones that have been reassigned, and of course the new names, with, bits and pieces of criticism here and there. But we'll just encourage you, as always, to please be a part of the conversation. Simply tweet at News Central TV. Let us know your thoughts on these ministers, the changes that have been made in the ministerial list. Some people have criticized the, stepping down of 5 and then adding 7, so the numbers continue to increase. It's not necessarily, reducing the expenditure of government, but it seems that we're increasing it. And then also, the reason behind these people being dropped, I particularly, I had met with Professor Tukomaman sometime this year in the FCT, and also Jamila Abiyo Ibrahim. I did have my own personal feelings, personal thoughts, concerning them, but again, for many Nigerians who have heard they had this story, and of course from yesterday, many people are asking, what was the thinking behind picking these people in these positions? And how is that different from the thinking behind their replacements? So if Professor Tukomaman was suddenly no longer good enough as the Minister of Education, what then is the sense behind his replacement? And these are some of the major questions that are being asked concerning the news from yesterday.
Right.
What motivated, what engineered the thinking behind these people being selected in the first place? Was it capacity? Was it their capability? And of course, rather their abilities rather to deliver on the president's agenda? And also, do these ministers even know what the president's agenda is? Are they aware what the agenda is? And former Minister Uju Kennedy as well, if you remember just a few weeks ago, she was bragging that she had the full support of Mr. President, and if she didn't have the support of Mr. President, he would have sacked her a long time ago. But of course, she's still there, and who born you, like she said. But of course, now she's no longer minister. But for me, the big question is, what was the thinking behind placing these people in those positions in the first place?
Concerns me, because you have raised very key points, and it's something that I have been saying. I've always said the process of our recruiting, I'll use the word recruiting people into these offices, the process of screening, again, because these names have been submitted to the National Assembly, the Senate, and these people will be screened. Thankfully, at least in these cases, they will be screened with a particular office in mind as opposed to how it was done before. So maybe they'll be more effective this time because they're coming in knowing what capacity they're coming for. The Senate is probably screening them. No, it's not probably. Definitely screening them now in certain capacity, with certain capacities in mind. Certain other people that, you've talked about Uju, the Minister of Women Affairs, being fired. You've talked about Tahir Maman, Minister of Education.
Tahir Maman, I beg your pardon. Yes. I kept saying to come Maman.
It's okay. Tahir Maman, Minister of Education. And all the other portfolios. There's also Betta Edu, who has obviously been replaced. And for the longest time, we didn't hear anything about her. But it's not just about replacing her. What of the case against her? Are we saying now that there's no more criminal case against her, that the FCC has done its investigation and has come to the conclusion that there is no case, she has no case to answer? Or is that just going to be, Nigerians have made a lot of noise about this, so we've removed her and life goes on, right? There's also the conversation about the new ministers that will be hired. What was the yardstick in hiring them? Some have also said that the Bianca Ojukwu card might be some political move. Yes, she has served in this capacity before. As she's an accomplished woman that will be able to hopefully do a lot of work. She'll be able to deliver. But there's some who think that this might be to score cheap political points from the southeastern part of Nigeria. So it's just several people having different reactions to this. But again, how does this reflect cutting the cost of governance?
So cutting cost of governance, I think we've moved away from that conversation a long time ago. I don't think the government is necessarily... I don't think this particular administration is necessarily so concerned about the idea of cutting the cost of governance. You know, from their actions in the last 16, 17 months, it doesn't, you know, seem like they're very keen on reducing, you know, how expensive it is to run the current Nigerian government.
And then there was controversy about names that are not there, that should have been there. I've seen people who have asked why the Adelabu's name isn't there, why the Minister of Power isn't there. With the way the national grid has collapsed in his time, they're wondering why he's not there. There are some people that have received a bit of shade because when the announcement about the cabinet reshuffle had come on, of course, Nigerians would try and put two and two together, and they wondered why FFK and Reno Omokri didn't get any political appointments in this.
But the reason, you know, that you would hear things like that is because Nigerians see the ministerial appointments as a reward system. They don't see these things as putting the right people in power, putting square pegs in square holes, and round pegs in round holes. Nigerians interpret, and it's really the way that the government has presented itself. You can't really blame anybody for interpreting it that way and describing this as rewarding those who maybe assisted, you know, in the campaign and helped the current administration get into power. That's the way that it has carried itself somehow, some way. The government has not carried itself in a way that it shows that it does have a goal, that it does have a plan. It has, you know, its strategy. And the people that it is carrying along with it, you know, in its cabinet are people that understand the idea behind, you know, what this government is trying to achieve. And so that's obviously the reason, or it's one of the questions that I brought up initially, that if every single person that you picked to be a minister understood what your goal was as president, understood what this administration was trying to achieve, then why are you dropping them just 16 months? And if you say, if the argument is, for the longest time, we've been talking about give the government time. Well, give these ones time. Give Tahir Maman time. If the argument has been that the current administration needs time to, you know, develop and to modify and to, you know, change, you know, the Nigerian reality, we'll give everybody time as well. Give Jamila Bio Ibrahim time as youth minister, even if I heavily criticized her as Minister of Youth, you know, and I don't know what she did in the time that she was there.
Like there were some names that you just wondered, the only time you heard about them was when they were either granting TV interviews or when they were being sworn in.
Many people have argued that she should have been dropped 2 weeks after she was nominated back then. But the point
makes me
is,
sad because I was rooting for her at the screening, rooting for her because, of course, because she was young, and we've advocated for more young people, young women, you know, young women. So I was hoping that I would see some work being done. It's just really sad to see.
Well, there is that. But again, you know, what was the thinking behind placing these people in office? How are we certain that it's not the same mentality that has brought these new ones into these positions, and that in another 16 months, we may need to remove these ones again? So there's nothing convincing the average Nigerian that the current administration has done its homework. It has put people that it believes will be able to drive the goals of this administration in those ministries well enough. There's nothing really that is convincing in any way, shape, or form. I expect that the government's defense would be that, well, the current administration has seen that these people don't seem to be pushing the ideals of President Bola Tinubu, and so there's no time to waste. You know, they're going to have to be removed and bring in more people. But you still have not been able to convince Nigerian people that the initial reason behind choosing these ones has changed, and these new names that you've changed or you've replaced them with will do better.
All right, and I see where you're coming from. I see the argument you're making about timing and how the current administration, their watchword has always been, you know, we need more time. We can't undo a lot that has been done in the shortest possible time. We met a very crippled economy, I mean, using those words loosely. But then again, another aspect would be that I probably can see that this might be something good in the long run, because it's not often that we see ministers being fired when they're not doing their due diligence or when they're not doing their work, right?
No, the problem here is that you assume they're fired because we're not doing their work.
Well, there were maybe a number of them were
That's-
embroiled in one controversy or the other.
Tahir Maman, I don't remember any major controversy except the 18-year-old
The 18-year-old
aspect of it.
word.
But
Uju has her
that's
own.
not normally you wouldn't argue is a good enough reason to fire a minister. If you remember during the NES in Abuja, one of the things that Nana they said was that we have a problem with being able to maintain policies and keep those policies running for a long time to be able to eventually see the gains.
And then start a fresh one.
Exactly. So what we see is that, one person comes, creates something, a couple of months later or a couple of years later, another person comes, stops that, and starts a new policy. And so whatever it is that Tahir Maman or whoever else, may have started, all those things may have, will currently be on hold because there's going to be fresh thinking, new ideas, new persons, in those positions. And again, the current administration has not convinced anybody that the reason that these people were dropped is because they weren't doing well enough.
Well, at the end of the day, I'm looking for the positive in all of this, or trying to see the positive.
That's fine. You can keep searching.
The positive here would be that it would make other ministers sit up and say, look, I have to do something obvious. I have to be seen to be working, not just working, but be seen to be working by the Nigerian people. Because if I don't, I could be the next person on the list. I guess that's the positive angle to it. If there's any other angle you have regarding the ministerial reshuffle, the hiring and the firing, let us know what your thoughts are. You can tweet at us individually or you can tweet at News Central TV. We'd like to find out what you think. Do you think that this will birth the transformation that this administration so desperately seeks, or or the Nigerian people so desperately seek? Or do you just think it's politics and one of those things that the government does to show or pay lip service to the fact that they're working? We'll talk about this a lot more in depth as we proceed with this morning's show, but let's share with you our top stories.
Let's begin by telling you that President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday dismissed 5 ministers from his cabinet and appointed 7 others. This was contained in a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Communication and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, on Wednesday. The affected ministers include Uju Kennedy Ohaneye as the Minister of Women Affairs, Lola Ade John as the Minister of Tourism, Tahir Maman as the Minister of Education, Abdullahi Gwazo as Minister of State for Housing and Urban Development, and Jamila Bio Ibrahim as the Minister of Youth Development. According to Onanuga, President Tinubu nominated Bianca Odumegu Ojukwu as the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, while Nentawe Iwata as the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, officially bringing an end to the tenure of suspended Beta Edu. The president also nominated Maigari Dinyadi as the Minister of Labor and Employment, Jumoke Oduole as the Minister of Industry, Idi Maiha as the Minister of the newly created Livestock Development Ministry, Yusuf Atta as the Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development, and Suwaiba Ahmed as the Minister of State for Education. In the meantime, the president also appointed media professional Sunday Dare as the Special Advisor on Public Communications and Orientation. Dare served as Minister of Youth and Sports Development under the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari. Also in the news, in a related development, President Bola Tinubu has dissolved the Niger Delta Ministry and the Ministry of Sports Development. The decision was announced yesterday by the presidential advisor Bayo Onanuga following a Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja. A newly created Ministry of Regional Development will now oversee all regional commissions, including the Niger Delta Development Commission. Meanwhile, the responsibilities of the Ministry of Sports Development have been transferred to the National Sports Commission, which will now handle all sporting activities in Nigeria. Also, the Ministry of Tourism has been merged with the Ministry of Culture and Creative Economy, creating a single entity to streamline operations in both sectors. Now, let's also tell you that President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday swore in Dr. Abdullahi Usman Bello as the new chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau. A brief ceremony took place ahead of the Federal Executive Council meeting, which was also chaired by the president. After the swearing-in, Bello spoke to the State House correspondents, pledging to tackle corruption through the Bureau. He emphasized the importance of integrity and accountability among public officials, vowing to uphold the agency's mandate.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank Mr. President for appointing me into this position. I'm really happy, and I want to assure Mr. President and the people of Nigeria I will do my best to make sure that I deal with this huge task that is ahead of me. Like you mentioned, Code of Conduct Bureau is the foremost anti-corruption agency, the first anti-corruption agency in Nigeria, and I intend to deliver on the mandates of the Bureau. It's all about making sure that people, public servants, they behave with integrity, they avoid corruption, no conflict of interest. So that is the aim of it. Integrity, accountability, that is what the duties that I need to deliver. And I promise Nigerians that, inshallah, I'm going to do my best to make sure that I deliver on the mandate of the Bureau. Thank you very much.
All right, so you have gone around the world,
yes.
UK, US, you've seen it all. From what you're...
Away from that, Benue State Governor Hassan Dalia has suspended the State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Fidelis Mainin, for joining a suit challenging the Economic and Financial Crime Commission EFCC's legality without his approval. This action follows the withdrawal of 3 states, Anambra, Adamawa, and Ebonyi, from the suit. Mainin's suspension was confirmed by the governor's spokesperson, who stated that he failed to inform the governor before joining the suit. The governor's decision reflects his disapproval of Mainin's unauthorized action. Now, let's also tell you that the federal government has withdrawn the money laundering charges preferred against Binance Holdings Limited executive Tigran Gambaryan, Binance U.S. Head of Financial Crimes Compliance, and the exchange British-Kenyan Regional Manager for Africa, Nadeem Anjawala, were facing money laundering charges to the tune of $35 million brought against them by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Gambaryan and Anjawala were initially both detained in the custody of the Office of the National Security Advisor. Anjawala, however, fled lawful custody on March 22, 2024, while his counterpart, Gambaryan, was arraigned in April. Following his arraignment, the court ordered his remand to Kuje Correctional Facility. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Let's head back to Breakfast Central now to continue with our top stories. I am Oluwaseyi Adegoke.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now let's share with you our headlines this morning. Tinubu sacks 5 ministers in cabinet reshuffle. We started the conversation with that and we'll delve into that even further. Federal government drops money laundering suit against Binance executive. And he's been freed for health reasons and for diplomatic reasons as well. Edo government denies hiding documents from Okpewolo's team. And we, of course, will be looking at residents express worry over hospital concerns and hospital activities. We review the newspaper front pages as we do every morning with our guests and with you. Serious concerns are emerging over the state of the Federal Teaching Hospital in Lokoja, Kogi State, north-central Nigeria. Reports of structural issues and deteriorating service delivery have been circulating, and now new revelations are shedding light on the severity of the situation. Our correspondent Joshua Imari spoke to residents in the state who shared their experiences and frustrations with the hospital's services.
Michael Adejo, not his real name, is a resident of Lokoja, the Kogi State capital. Adejo is among many who have been affected by the crisis at the Federal Teaching Hospital in Lokoja between the hospital management and sub-staff of the hospital. With a heavy heart, he continues to mourn the recent loss of his mother, who lost her life due to negligence at the hospital facility as she was unable to receive adequate care before her unfortunate demise.
My mom just passed on of recent for the hospital. The day we carry and come, we do emergency. Proper, as in, we cause serious noise for emergency there. Imagine my mom don't carry my mom come there around as early as to 7 in the morning. before the trained doctor will come attend to her, almost around after 5. Many patients they die. No be see natural sickness. Now just because of attention, make many patients they die.
Now, the talk says sometimes they know they get light. Say
Yes,
that for darkness could just be.
Yes, they know they get light. Mainly now the emergency now generator, the emergency they run now.
Some other patients say a hospital should be a place of healing and care. For Jemilu Abdullahi, the teaching hospital has become a place of shock and delusionment.
Well, from outside now we see the structure of the place fine. You mean say the inside not fine?
At all. If you go to the bedroom, you like, is human using this very bedroom or animal? Like you ask this question, now human being they use this bedroom, I've been an animal they use. One thing I just discovered is they just paint the outside, do little innovation. So if you are passing, you see that this place is okay, but go inside and see it yourself.
Another resident, Ezekiel Jonathan, a middle-aged man, also resident in Lokoja, says that he received a prescription from the same hospital, hoping to finally get drugs for his father. However, what should have been a straightforward visit to the hospital NHIS pharmacy turned out to be a frustrating ordeal for the 4th time in recent months.
If you look at everything here, it's complete politics going on here. Just now, they prescribe drugs. I went to the NHIS pharmacy. Those drugs are not there. I had to come outside of the hospital to get these drugs. And this is not the first time. I think this is the 4th time now this is happening. There's nothing working here. Go through the wards everywhere. I don't have much to say, but if there is a way things can change here, which I don't think is possible.
Several attempts have been made to reach the management of the Federal Teaching Hospital in Lokoja. The hospital public relations officer declined to comment on the matter, but instead directed News Central to consult with the Kogi State chapter of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. In Lokoja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
We did take this conversation yesterday as well, showing what the insides of the health center or the health facility looks like in Lokoja. It's not a good look. Now, our correspondent has spoken with residents, and we're hoping that the Kogi State government is listening, and that even as we are highlighting the concerns of citizens, of medical personnel in the state, Nigerians do not deserve that level of carelessness and nonchalance when it comes to health, because when you're looking at the quality of any citizen, the quality of any country is as good as much attention as they pay to their health care. So we will keep talking about it and hoping that we can get a response from the government, not just by way of words, but a drastic 360 turnaround in the health sector. But now moving on to other conversations. The federal government of Nigeria has withdrawn all money laundering charges leveled against Binance. And that's one of the stories that we'll be looking at this morning. This is, of course, against Tigran Gambarian, an executive of Binance Holdings Limited. This was delivered by Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court of Nigeria. And they officially discharged him and ordered his release from Kuje Correctional Facility, where he had been held since April 8, 2024. Now, this, of course, follows reports of Gambarian's decline in health, and they had also made mention of diplomatic reasons as one of the reasons why they had decided that they wouldn't go ahead with this. President Bola Tinubu has made significant changes to his cabinet. It's another conversation that we'll be looking at. But just before we get into that, Osage, let's quickly look at your thoughts regarding the money laundering allegations. I think the first thing that came to me was, why now? This, whatever reasons the EFCC's lawyer is bringing up right now is not a new reason. They have been talking about it for the longest time. His health, his declining health did not just come to our knowledge. They raised alarm about his declining health. We had even seen a video of a correctional facility officer who was not handling him with care when he had asked for support because he needed to walk, and then they were not treating him in the right way. The issue of his declining health, one, they are talking of diplomatic relations. Another reason was that he is an employee of Binance, and Binance is the one that really has questions to answer to the government. And yes, the charges against Binance have not yet been removed. They are still there, and Binance still has these answers to give. However, we did not just realize that Tigran Gambarian is a staff of Binance and that he's not the one who has to be held. So I really don't know how I feel about this. It's just, why now, Sauge?
I mean, I think there are key points that you've raised, and I think every other person who's followed the story will pretty much say the same thing, answer the same questions. And of course, one of the key things I've also seen people comment on is now that the charges have been dropped, and of course with the crisis that we've had with Binance, how has this affected the exchange rate? It was one of the claims that were made when the arrest was made and when those allegations were made in the first place against Binance, about how somehow, some way they had influenced the naira, of course, and its value to the dollar, and some of all of that. And so what is different now is pretty much the same thing that happened with Aboki FX way back then, in the previous administration. But the key thing is here, he has been, the charges have been dropped. The charges against Binance continue. Against him, yes, have been dropped. But of course, the case against Binance continues. And I believe that the Nigerian government should have been able to, continue to pursue the charges against Binance without necessarily
having him down. I mean, they didn't handle it well at all.
If there wasn't a strong enough case to keep him here. But let's quickly get into the conversation. We have, joining us this morning or in a bit, sometime today, we're going to be having a public affairs analyst, to join us and share his thoughts with us on these stories, and of course understand clearer what exactly might be playing out here as the government wasted its resources chasing charges against this individual, only to eventually drop those charges. Are health issues enough reasons to drop charges against someone that the government truly believes is guilty of money laundering charges?
But the question is whether the government truly believes that Tigran Gambaryan is the one that's guilty. But we'll come back to talk about that much later.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to the biggest story right now in Nigerian news and politics. President Bola Tinubu has made significant changes to his cabinet, sacking 5 ministers and appointing 7 new ones. The president also reassigned 10 ministers to new positions, his office said. This move is part of the administration's efforts to reinvigorate its capacity for optimal efficiency and deliver on his promises to Nigerians. Now, this rejigging has also extended to some federal ministries, as the presidency announced the elimination and restructuring of some federal ministries. The Ministry of Niger Delta has been renamed the Ministry of Regional Development, and now encompassing all regional development bodies, including commissions for the Northeast, Northwest, and other areas. This is not all, and of course, joining us to discuss the full details of the president's cabinet reshuffle and of course the new developments in the federal ministries is the publisher of Inside Watch Africa and global affairs analyst Oluwaseyi Adegoke. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you as well.
Thank you.
And also joining us this morning is former Minister of Youth and Sports, Solomon Dalung. He'll be joining us virtually shortly. But let's get into the conversation and get your overall sense. We're not surprised. I think there had been rumors and conversations about a possible rejigging of the president's cabinet. And so it doesn't come as a surprise that this is happening. But is there any element of the reshuffling, maybe in terms of the names that have been hired, fired, and reshuffled, that comes to you as a surprise?
Truth of the matter is, as a Nigerian, like you said, we've been expecting the rejiggling, the retweaking of the cabinet. But I'm looking forward to work. Because as a Nigerian, we all know what we're all going through right now. And what we are expecting is that whatever has been done will start to result into changes in our lives, positive changes. Because most often people will talk about having a minister or a commission or someone who is driving it. I've always said, if the right support is given, if the right access is given to whoever, if he's a DG of an agency, he can deliver at that level. So yes, 5 was taken out. We now have extra 7. In my opinion, is there a clear change? Not yet. Let's start to see this work for us. Then we would start, in my opinion, to say, all right, it seemed like all the clamor, all the, complaints seem to have gotten to the right places, and it's the president have taken the right decision. So as it stands right now, I'm saying let's cross our fingers and let's see this work for us, because that's the essence of having them in the office in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, the argument, that people had, Nigerians had maybe complained about the reality of things and the president has decided to take action. If that was a strong enough argument, the president probably would have removed all the ministers. It's not just in these specific areas that Nigerians have complained. The Minister of Youth, for example, being replaced, it's not because there's anything in particular that has happened in the youth ministry that has made Nigerians in particular say that she's inefficient. many people have also questioned the reason these people were nominated in the first place. The screening, ministerial screening, when it happened, if you remember, at the start of the administration, people also pointed, that there's something off here. What makes this person good enough for these roles that they're taking? So do you feel, any different today that these new names have been placed to handle these positions? Or is it the same feeling that, there's not really any points to defend these names being used in the first place?
Again, you see, it's not enough to, and I like to do this, to say, oh, New Central. Who are the people who are going to be brought on board? And sometimes it's not even the management. It is those who are going to be at the field, who you're going to make sure you empower to get the right story, to make sure that the right things are turned in and the way is viewed and driven. We've seen several platforms. At some time, we're not doing as well. At this time, they're doing as better than they were doing before. So again, if you take it to, let's just take one of them. So you have sports now. You say, all right, we don't want to do ministerial drive again. Let's bring it down to the commission. Now, if you put someone there, even as low as the NFA, and the person understands what is to do, you'll start to see changes. So the question now is, all of those people that have come in, I don't know them. It's not like they've done anything special in any area that will say, oh, maybe because, okay, the person I could vouch for is the person who's now been entrusted with tourism, culture, and the creative economy. Now, why am I vouching for her? Not because I know her, but because I believe that if she has done as well as she's done in the culture space, now what you have done, in my opinion, is bring the product of tourism together. So tourism is the umbrella ministry, for bringing in people into Nigeria, but the culture, as it were, is one of the strongest products we have as a country to bring a lot of people into Nigeria. We're very cultural people. We have very rich culture. If it's done well, you will discover that we then will be able to unlock that very, very, very important and very viable ministry, which is tourism ministry, because as a people, in my opinion, up until today, we have not done well in the tourism space. But if you're able to now say, okay, the same person that manages culture is the same person that manages the creative economy, which could be films and all of those things, bringing them together on the same table. So when everything is discussed, it is geared towards ensuring that we attract people into Nigeria and people are, encouraged to come spend their money here. We're very popular. A lot of people talk about Nigeria all over the world, in Africa. People are looking forward to coming to Nigeria. But the point is, the products that we have, how much have we worked on them to ensure that people are truly attracted to Nigeria and they're willing to come? So if you want us to stay in that space to talk about that, I think is an exciting thing that has happened, in my opinion. I'm sure a lot of my colleagues in the tourism space, because I'm very active in the tourism space, might not agree with me because they believe that it's better to have a standalone ministry for tourism and all that. And I said, look, if you then say, all right, let's have the product together, in the same port, so that we can cook this better and make sure that we start to attract more tourists into Nigeria, I think is a smart way to look at things.
I want to really stay on tourism a little bit before we get to the other one, since you've highlighted tourism. Yeah. I think the major challenge isn't, and I completely agree with you when you say that we haven't tapped half as much into our resources.
Half is you're generous.
I'm just being generous,
yes,
exactly.
Yes.
I'm being very generous.
Yeah.
There's so much. I even, as a Nigerian, haven't explored the amazing wonders that Nigeria has to offer in terms of tourism. Yeah. But if you tell a Nigerian to travel to go and see Kogosi Warm Springs, okay, Kogosi Warm Springs is pretty close, or to go to Bauchi, to go to the hot and cold, I've forgotten the name of that river. But there's so many of these tourist
sites.
But we have insecurity. We have bad roads. To go to Abuja now is almost 400,000 naira by flight. And you won't want to go by road, because if you go by road, you're going to be thinking, if they kidnap me, who's going to pay the ransom? So I don't know what the possibilities are and what magic can be done in the tourism sector if we don't fix our insecurity problems and if we don't fix our roads.
Now, let me first say that those things are going to be ongoing. Whether you want to agree with me or not, even as insecure as we describe those areas, people still go home for all sort of things, burials and all of those things, and people still visit those places. And everywhere in the world, they also have their issues at every point in time. I believe that those things need to be done so that it will make it easier for people to travel to those places. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't stop us from really exploring those places, because no matter how dangerous or insecure we describe any place, people are living there, and it will shock you that if we have more people going to that place, it will help to really stem the insecurity, because they are thriving on the fact that there are lesser people there. If you look at their modus operandi, they are normally attack sparsely populated area. You know, so when you have a situation where there are not enough people in an area, it's a good, incentive, as it were, for you to come into that place and attack them. But when you say to yourself, okay, this place, we want to make it an agricultural corridor, we want to make it a tourism corridor, then you will naturally start to put certain things in place, because you have people visiting, you have people calling in. You see, these things must be seen. You don't wait till you have fixed it to exploit, to take advantage of it. You will start to exploit, because then it's investment. People will start to say, okay, this thing is making sense. It seems like I would try it as well. And people will go. And at the end of the day, whilst you're in there, you're saying, oh, this is not working. Maybe we should fix this. That's not working. We should fix this. If you're expecting that everything will just fall in place before you go there, then you're not really going to have anything done. Because there's several levels. Let me just quickly finish that point. There's several levels of tourists. You really, if you move from your village to the other village, you're a tourist. So you've moved from your resident environment to a new place. 1, 2, 3 days, you've toured. So if we wait that, okay, we'll have a perfect security arrangement and infrastructure, then we're not really going to be exploring the tourism industry that I consider maybe one of the biggest industry in the world that Nigeria could be benefiting from, but unfortunately we're not benefiting from.
One of the things that I believe, would encourage, every person who's appointed as a minister is a clear knowledge on the direction that the country has to go. And so if you're talking about digital economy, for example, or blue economy, any of them, you already would have at the back of your mind, conversations you've had with the top, leaders of the administration, with Mr. President himself, that this is what we're trying to achieve with this, government. As a Nigerian, do you have any clear picture of where this current administration might be going?
Again, some of these things are global agendas. I'm very optimistic, and sometimes a little too optimistic. If we're going to wait till we have a clear agenda, from the table or stable of Mr. President, then we probably all should just pack our bags and go into our rooms. But is tourism working in countries as close?
I'm not talking about tourism.
I'm
generally.
I'm just using that as a product. So is other countries working? They are. So if you have a responsibility in your space, I believe that you should run with it rather than wait for the general agenda. Because you see, again, Mr. President, he said, what's the mantra?
Renewed hope.
Renewed hope. So renewed hope is very general and generic. So I think
that's exactly what I'm pointing out. What do you expect that the Minister of Youth, for example, or Minister of Education, has mentally, that these are things that I would like to achieve in a 4-year, time frame for this administration? Do you have anything? Is there anything that you've heard from the president himself, even, or from any of the ministers, that these are our targets?
You see, again, you just asked me a very interesting question. You talked about education and sport, right?
And youth.
And youth. Okay,
just
fine.
as example.
You.
You can add agriculture, anyone.
Yeah. So if Mr. President is not clear enough, because we're talking about the new ministers right now, they've taken up a duty. My words is directed at them. You don't necessarily have to wait for Mr. President to run. He said we have a need to have a renewed hope in Nigeria. So copy it from your next door neighbor, Republic of Benue or Ghana. Things are working. Please paste it and let's start running. Because where we are right now, and let's be really clear, and I'm not that kind of Nigerian who would, outside is hot. Everything is at the edge. So it is really not a time to worry so much about what is not working or is not looking like it's working. It's actually the time to say, oh, what can we do today so that we can start to move the needle from where it is right now to the next place?
Great, but what is going to give me the motivation as Minister of Agriculture to move that is because I can see that I'm running in an administration that has given me KPIs, administration that has already set itself up, with its own KPIs, that this is where we want to see Nigeria in the next couple of years. But if I'm not working under that type of administration, I don't necessarily feel the need to be innovative. And another thing is, so if we're not doing anything different as a people, we're not expected to see any different results in the end. If we've not been able to change the way with which our budgets are being structured, for example, in agriculture, that this is the way we've been doing things, in previous administrations, but because we are trying to improve on agricultural output in the next 4 years, we're going to restructure it. We're no longer going to be funding, these sectors and giving out handouts to farmers and fertilizer to farmers. We're instead going to be investing more in technology. We're going to be funding, there has to be something different. So if you don't see that under any ministry, then what convinces me that if you change ministers every 6 months, there will be any difference at the end?
Okay, so
I'm sorry.
No problem.
I also don't agree with Mr. President simply just saying renewed hope. So everybody should just be innovative because we have said, what does that even mean?
Okay, fine. Okay, so I don't agree with you that there are no KPIs. We probably won't know, and maybe the guys who are in charge of their communication are not doing a good job in bringing out some of these things to the to the fore. But again, I know that in this administration, they have a lady who was an MPA before, who is meant to be the one checking out. What's her name now? She was MD of, and our responsibility is to say, okay, you're doing this. So for her to have that responsibility means something had been laid out for them because she must have a parameter with which she will work. Now, I'm saying, even without doubt, you took up a job or you accepted to be a minister. You understand? And you are sitting on the table and you are saying, oh, because nobody has really told me where to go. Why did you take up the job in the first place? You see, the truth of the matter is, where we are at right now, the house is burning. It is not a time to say, oh, I did not get this brief. Oh, I did not do that. It is a time to give us, even if you don't understand it. So your minister, get aids. Go look for help. And so in this same administration, you have, everybody's talked about the guy who is in the Ministerial as to how far is done with what he's been doing. Tunjojo, the airports, immigrations and all of that. So if he had sat back and say, I really don't understand what Mr. President is saying, nobody will be talking about what he's doing right now. So my opinion is where we are now. I like your questioning and I like the fact that you're saying, so how are we going to move the needle from where it is right now to the next? So I'm saying one of the things to start to do is, so these new people have been entrusted with this new responsibility. Can they run? Can they start to do things? Because you see, it's not rocket science. You really don't need to go into the space to get some of these things done. You just need to sit at your table and be ready to work. Again, all of the things you need to do are being done everywhere else. So sit and do the job. Get the right set of guys as your team members and start to run. Let it be clear that, for instance, you come to us tomorrow, for instance, and roll out what you want to do. And you say, okay, and I'm going to be meeting Mr. President to get this thing done. And everybody had it. and then you're unable to do it. So when they ask you question later and say, Mr. Minister, you said you were going to do this, tell us, okay, I've presented it and I'm expecting that things will be done. So everybody knows that you have been able to present those things and you're really willing to do those things. It is that Mr. President has not approved it or has not done it. So at the level of these new people who have gotten this assignment, I think it is time for them to roll off their slaves and start to move the needle, because that's all Nigeria really needs. We know that you're not going to turn everything around overnight. You're not going to, so people come into the airport and they see some new changes and they're excited. Because Nigerians just need that new change. That hope, whether it's renewed or is old, let's see something happening. Let's see some, the table moving or the tunnel, you're just turning it. But we don't want it to remain the way it's been, because you don't have a clear agenda, you don't have a clear KPI. I believe there are KPIs. You and I might not be
But shouldn't we be very aware?
We should be.
Shouldn't
No.
made...
It's not an excuse. I'm just saying that the best thing to do for ourselves right now, at least the guys who've been given this assignment, is for them to start to do things. Because obviously they've been told how they want to run their things. And again, I'm referring to, that is why there's someone that has been given an assignment to check. And I think they do, because I know that they do. At the end of the year, they were saying, this agency did well, blah, blah, blah. So I'm sure they had a parameter.
I may slightly disagree, because as a staff of New Central, when I was being hired, the organization gave me a JD. There was a job description. And they hired me because they felt that I could fulfill A, B, C, and D on my job description.
Absolutely.
And these things are typically included in your contract to say, this is what we're looking to achieve. Right? The president has a team. The president, during his campaign, one of the things that was said the most about him was how he's a chief strategist and he knows how to pick the best hands. So we would assume that his strategy team and with his superpower of being able to pick the right people, there would be some form of a KPI, a job description, an expectation for the different ministries, and that the right people will then be picked to fulfill these roles or this job description. And where they cannot, in this case, fulfill it, then they are fired or replaced. Remember the last Minister of Education, when there was an interview he granted when he said, when he came into office, he knew nothing about education, but along the line...
Under the Buhari
administration.
Yes.
So we don't want to keep having situations where we are having square pegs in round holes, people that are not perfectly suited to these. So I do not know categorically if the responsibility lies on the person who's being hired to create a job description.
No, not create a job description. Again, let's look at this, objectively. We just agreed that someone has been entrusted with a responsibility of measuring performances. There's no way she will be given that assignment if there's nothing rolled out for them for her to measure. And again, this person is not just anybody. This is someone who had proven her worth outside there when she was brought into MPA, and at the end of the day, we all agree that she did well in MPA, and she's been given this assignment. So it is better, or would have been better for all of us to have all of these things clearly written on the wall, so that you and I can know.
This is why this person was hired, this is why this one was
fired.
So
that we won't be having this discussion. But that they don't have, I don't agree. I believe that they will have.
All right.
And I'd rather, we start to look at, whatever is being told to do, since we all know how the shoe is paining us and all of that, can they start to run? That's my take.
Let's look at the current list that we have and see if there are names that you think should have been there that are not there, or names that shouldn't have been there that are there. So far, you believe that our focus should be on the people who are here and how they should run. But I've seen a number of reactions on social media, of course, and there are people who think that, for example, Mr. Adelabu, the Minister of Power, should have been on that list because the Nigerians are complaining about how many times the national grid has collapsed and the power sector doesn't, with the whole banding system, band A, band B, the number of Nigerians who think that that's, it's not been the most successful delivery. Do you think that the Minister of Power should have been on the list of ministers who were fired?
Okay, again, I also agree that we've had a lot of challenges in that space. Job could have been done better. But you see, I have seen and I've been around for too long for me to sit at a far seat and say, oh, if I were MD of New Center, I will run it better. Until I come here and I'm given the responsibility for me to start to see that some of these things are not as easy as I think. But if I come or I have an opportunity to engage with them here, I will say, maybe, why don't you guys try this and try that? Because I'm a very, very, like I said before, pragmatic, objective, and a very strong optimist.
Yeah. What do you think was the difference between in the Olusegun Obasanjo administration, 1999 to 2007? What do you think was different then compared to what we have today?
Okay, I'm one of those who believe that that administration is probably one of the best we've ever had, ever. Yeah, because, you had someone who just wasn't interested in any niceties, no sentiment. He wanted results. So he went shopping. And at the end of the day, he brought people who could deliver, and we all saw it. He's on the table. He's there in the shelf of history.
Okay.
So we can see clearly. So there's no...
so comparing it with what we have today.
So it is clear that the kind of shopping the current president is doing is not anything compared to what he did. Because those people weren't politicians. We don't... Okonjo-Iweala, maybe I even didn't know her, before she became Minister of Finance. She came and she delivered. And you can see that even when she left us, she went back. Today she's the World Trade Organization. So that is the kind of shopping Obasanjo did.
But you know what is also pretty obvious.
Yeah.
That it's not just the intentionality behind the shopping, right, comes from the core of who Obasanjo was in 1999 and what he wanted to achieve for Nigeria.
Yeah.
That also is what you cannot see in 2023 or 2024. That if President Tinubu is intentional about his shopping, if he's intentional about what he wants to achieve, sorry, he will be intentional about his shopping. Can't you see it clearly missing in this era?
Sorry, remind me your name again.
Osaroge.
Now, let's be in agreement. I don't like what is going on. I'm not happy with all of the things that are happening right now. But I'm saying that as we are now, what can we make out of this soup that is on the table? Right now, these people have been entrusted with this assignment. One of our roles as the fourth estate is to set agenda as well. We can actually start to throw certain things up, because I'm also in the media. To start to throw certain things up and say, oh, we will expect you to do this. Let's start to bring, like you just did, in Obasanjo's regime, at least we're not going outside to bring examples. We're bringing examples from this same Nigeria. Oh, we were able to do this, we were able to do that, we were able to achieve this. Let's start to bring those things up and sort of flood the airways with those things. Because you see, is it bad? Oh, yes, it's terrible. It's very, very bad. The situation right now, it's in a shambles. I'm also a believer of the fact that you cannot win a match if you decide that because, sorry to use this example, an Okocha offended you, and you have him in your team, and you bench him, and you bring any other person. We all saw what will really happen to you. They will stone you if you're unfortunate, if they beat, you lose that match. Yeah. So please, can we, in Africa generally, because again, I also speak on Africa platform, start to bring our best foot forward. Let's start
from all tribes?
Any tribe. You see, those things, it's unfortunate that how old as we are, we still talk about tribes. Because you see, at the end of it, those things really don't count. Because yesterday I was just discussing it. We're all migrants. We move around from north to south. Some people decided they got to Lagos. And Lagos is a very interesting place. You know that Lagos is actually the Aworis. The Aworis, they're very connected to the Republic of Benin. So, or the guys from Egba, if you really read the story of Lagos. So you can actually start another, talk around that. So when it comes to tribe, for me, it is a talk of those who really do not want any
Unfortunately, Nigeria hasn't yet moved past the tribe conversation, but I agree with you that we should definitely move past it. Oluwaseyi Adegoke, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for the
opportunity.
opportunity.
We're still looking at these conversations. Of course, we'll keep talking about it much later. We'll take some of your reactions. on what Nigerians are saying to the cabinet reshuffle, the hiring and the firing. But now, let's share with you a recap of the conversations and what's next. Oluwaseyi Adegoke, looking at what this means. Federal government drops money laundering suit against Binance executive, citing reasons like his health, diplomatic issues, and how Binance should be the clear focus. Residents expressed worry over hospital activities, and we went inside the medical facility in Kogi, Lokoja, and of course spoke to residents. But now let's share what's coming up next.
The Edo State government denies hiding documents from Okpebholo's team. And also we'll bring you the newspaper front pages, the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning, and also what Nigerians are saying.
The family of Daniel Ogo, a 27-year-old UK-based postgraduate student who disappeared after arriving at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos on Saturday, the 5th of May 2024, need your help in finding their son. On Tuesday, his twin brother, David, shared more light on the missing brother. His family, who reported the incident to law enforcement, also seeks your help in finding Daniel. So anyone with information on his whereabouts should please contact the nearest police station or call the family at 090-3544-0301 or 0816-708-2786. Please, we ask that you do your part, help in looking out. We also have a very detailed interview about him, which you can find on our YouTube channel. If you need insights as to certain details, maybe what he was wearing, what he looks like, where he might like to have hung out typically. So please, we hope that we can do our best and that we can find him and reunite him with his family. For now, moving away from that, let's move to our newspapers and see what the newspapers are saying this morning. We're joined this morning to discuss the newspapers by the publisher of CKN News, Chris Kendi Nwandu. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's nice to be here with you this morning.
Okay. Eku reshuffling cabinet and happy hiring and firing.
Eku reshuffle.
Okay, I'm sure that will be a big story that we're talking about, but let's just head straight into the papers this morning and review the front pages. Our first paper this morning is the Daily Times newspaper. Tinubu sacks 5 ministers, and we're seeing he has reassigned 10 to new portfolios. Charges newly appointed ministers, reassigned colleagues to see their employment or their appointment as called to serve Nigeria. President has no basis to scrap Niger Delta Affairs Ministry, says Edwin Clark. ASUP mobilizes lecturers as strike ultimatum expires as more lecturers endorse ASUP National Executive Council's position. Ogun tells residents of flood-prone areas to relocate. CBN's FX backlog clearance boosts Naira stability, says IMF. Federal government urges states to boost climate change resilience. Court orders release of Gambarian from prison as federal government drops criminal charge. Aviation Minister Naime DG orders participate in WMO Aeronautical Meteorology Scientific Conference. And that's all that we have on the front page of the Daily Times. Let's move over to the next paper.
The Daily Trust newspaper is next. It says here, Tinubu sacks 6 ministers, appoints 7 others. Reassigns portfolios to 10. It says cabinet still overbloated, and that's a message from CSOs. Lean government workforce will cut wastes, says ex-permanent secretary, and also will attempt or resist attempt rather to scrap Niger Delta Ministry. And you thought there was going to be reactions to that.
Of course,
but it's a good time to question the relevance of the Niger Delta Ministry and what really has done for the Niger Delta, including, of course, the relevance of the. There's a new board on the NDDC, so I think we can still give them a bit of time to see, how far they travel. They've been doing quite a bit. Jigawa tanker explosion. We lost 50 relatives. Federal government withdraws money laundering charges against Binance executive. And also Emirates Sanusi to Turban elder's son, Chiroman Kanu. External reserves hit $40 billion as Nigeria targets $1 billion monthly inflow. I think these are the major stories that we can take. Federal government gives Julius Berger ultimatum on Abuja-Kaduna Kanu Road.
All right, let's move over from that to the Punch newspaper. On the front page of the Punch, private sector opposition split as Tinubu reshuffles cabinet. OPS backs Tinubu as opposition. CSOs Nigerians demand sacking of more underperforming ministers. President fires 5 appoints 7, reassigns 10 ministers as federal government merges, scraps ministries. FEC okay $618 million loan for fighter jets ammunition. Canadian lady jailed 11 years for importing 35.20 kg worth of cannabis. Oyandam, Ogun communities reject Abiodun's relocation advisory. Dangote refinery begins direct petrol sale to marketers. 12 states delay 30,000 naira minimum wage for teachers, according to report. Diaspora Nigerians get non-resident BVN platform by December. Interesting. And that's according to Cardoso. 2 stories before we move on. Makinde rally support for Ajayi, says election will shock APC, and Aiyedatiwa's voters declares PDP umbrella finally torn. What a line. Let's get to the conversation proper and bring in Chris Kende Wandu. So many stories, but of course we'll begin with the ministers, the rejigging of the cabinet, the firing and the rehiring. There are those who say that, I mean, on the front page of the Punch, as you can see, it does say that they're demanding sacking of more underperforming ministers. There are those who think that the list isn't incomplete. So from where you stand, looking at this list, are you okay with the list? Are you first of all happy with the firing and the hiring and the reshuffling? And are you okay with the list as is?
Well, as they say in local parlance, at all.
Not bad part.
Not bad. So we commend the president for the cabinet reshuffle. He has been promising this for some time now, and finally we are here. Why I'm commending him is that this is a clear departure from what we had from the last regime. Because if you know the 8 years of Muhammadu Buhari and the way he kept ministers, despite the outcry by Nigerians on most of the ministers not performing, the former president will just use cutting, just stuff his ears and refuse to listen to anybody. So most of them that were in that cabinet had nothing doing, for at least for the period that they were there. So the president came out yesterday and announced the reshuffling of the cabinet. Some were asked to go. The spokesperson of the president, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, said we shouldn't be calling it sack. That they were not sacked. No, that they were relieved of their position. And I don't know the difference between sack and yes. I watched him on a national TV yesterday on the program, and that was what he said. He said that saying that the sack was degrading, that so that they were relieved of their position. So I'm not a student of English. It's giving subsidy and short form. So that just it. But you ask yourself, some of those that were sacked or were relieved, according to Mr. Onanuga, when you look at the list, there are some people you just look at and say, yes, they deserve to go. E.g. And you don't need to ask me, because about 3 weeks ago, you were asking me about the Minister of Women Affairs on this, where we sat down here. No, it was you. It was you that specifically. Hey, it was you. Remember. It wasn't him. It was you. I remember, you know. And I believe that, yes, the woman was a total embarrassment to this government and to Nigerians because of she had the opportunity to be able to better the life of women in her advocacy and all, but most of her actions or inactions leading to, and you can start from, there are so many of them, starting from the time she said she was going to sue the UN. The UN. You remember she started by saying she would sue the UN. They went to the University of Calabar scandal, sex scandal, so many things that the way she was bumping into events, saying that she has the approval of President.
I see some people's reaction to her that some people say, oh, that the issue is because Nigerians don't like people that are strict, that she's probably very harsh or not refined with her approach, but that she was actually working. And once you are working and you're being firm with Nigerians, they don't like you.
When you are in my place, they say when you ask to go and abuse a king, you go to the king. When you get there, you open your mouth wide to abuse the king. But as I said, for me, I think that she just had to go. Then the second one is also the Minister of Education, who probably didn't know his job schedule. A professor, a former vice chancellor, they were bringing all sorts of controversy into the system, education system. Instead of advancing it, it was creating more problems. That for me. But I still believe that there are some others that we thought, in fact, some that we thought would have been within a hierarchy of those that would be sacked. But probably in the president's wisdom, he didn't touch them, whether they're untouchable or not. But let's see how it goes. And also the rejigging, moving ministers from one portfolio to the other. Let's see how it's going to go. Because for me, this is the second, I would say this is the second batting, you know, on a race. When you have what do you call it now? Not marathon, you know, the one that pass batting, like what's that one again? Relay. Relay. So this is the second batting of the relay. Let's see whether they'll be able to deliver. But this government have not been able to deliver. 16 months, most of the promises, in fact, practically all the promises they made to Nigeria. I was also looking at the economic angle, irrespective of whatever anybody says. Those that are managing the economy, including the Minister of Finance, for me, have been very disappointed, including the governor of the Central Bank. That is my personal opinion. I may be wrong, but...
I mean, I mostly just...
And also the minister, then, sorry, before I forget, the one that is more paramount to me, the Minister of Petroleum is supposed to have sacked himself.
I was about to ask, like... The
Minister of Petroleum was supposed to have sacked himself. The Minister of Petroleum is the president. We have been saying it time and time again, it's high time he just remove his hand from that minister and give it to somebody that is competent. So between him and his Minister of Petroleum States, yeah, both of them need to have been sacked.
And what of the Minister of Power?
That's what I'm saying. I said there are some people that are supposed to be within the hierarchy. The Minister of Power, when you say 1, 2, 3, in terms of order, Minister of Power, number 1, Minister of Petroleum, number 2, Minister of State Petroleum, I mean the President. I'm not saying sack the President, I said the Minister, who is the President, number 2, Minister of State Petroleum, number 3. Then we can start coming, going there. But I didn't see those ones being touched.
But I mean, the things that I'm continuing to point out is, you know, questioning the reason these people were picked in the first place. Was it because of their capacity? You know, and the expectations that they will be able to deliver on the administration's agenda.
No, it's not.
So, I mean, so because if that's not the case, then you can't necessarily say that they have failed. Because you need to know what they were, you know, the reason these people were picked in the first place.
So let me get you there. The buck stops on the table of the president.
Absolutely.
He hires and fires. It is not for me to question why he picked anybody he picked. That is his discretion. The Constitution has given him that right. But you have to understand that in politics, especially the way we play politics, there is always that undertone for compensation, compensating people that helped you in winning election, here and there, pressure here and there. The president, as is normally say, most of the time wants to use 1 year to be able to sit down because he's just coming into the office newly, and he just believes that. Don't forget that most of them were not nominated by the president. Most of them come from the state. Governors nominate them, the party nominates them, and the rest of them. The president, most often than not. It is only few people that have been on the saddle, and probably a person like President Oluwaseyi Adegoke, who from day one knew what he wanted, irrespective of what, and he said it, irrespective of whatever you contributed to my election, let me do this job. And they sat down to do it. I was able to do it at least effectively to a large extent. But every other person, including Yaradua, including Goodluck Jonathan, then to Buhari, which was even Buhari, the worst president we ever had in this country, then to Tinubu. So probably Tinubu can now look everybody in the face and say, I have a job to do. And Nigerians are going to hold me responsible for if I don't get this job done, and this is where I want to go. So let us see what is going to happen.
Start.
Yeah, this is a fresh start. That's why I say it's a second battle. This is a second betting. So whether
16 months into, I mean, so just below 2 years. So he has about, you know, another 2 years.
He has spent almost 40% of his time.
With this argument now, if you know, these new sets start, they have just slightly above 2 years to be able to achieve something under the current administration if he doesn't win re-election.
Yeah, well...
So shouldn't he have made the right decisions from start?
The question you have to ask yourself is that he has gone ahead to set up, appoint somebody who has been given a KPI, who has to benchmark all the ministers and look at their performance. And that is why I was just wondering yesterday when I saw this, is this what Usman was able to do? Is this the best you could get? Of all even we that are the outside, we know what is happening. So what parameter did she use? Because it has been squarely put on her table that she was the one that marked the script and decided to make recommendations based on it. But what we have is still the old story as far as I'm concerned. These guys cannot fly, except for one or two of them. We said it retirement. First and foremost, while we're also talking of the bad eggs or the bad apples, let us also do someone like the Minister of Aviation. Fantastic, he has been doing a good job. And that was why I've always said that you don't need somebody to be very, very vast in a particular subject matter to be able to deliver. First of all, Kiamu is a lawyer. He has no experience in aviation, but you see what he has done. We've talked of the guy at the Interior Ministry. Yes, even the man that is now becoming, I don't know what to call him, a warlord or a lord in Abuja, the FCT minister. Yes, that is not turning himself to problem. The Minister of FCT. Minister of FCT. Who is practically turning himself into an emperor with the kind of. But he's delivered. I just came back from Abuja last week, and I've seen a lot of improvement within the infrastructure in Abuja in the last 1 year. So those ones are the best nature of everything.
In fact, we can
Which was marine? Which one?
Blue economy.
Where is the blue? Which blue? Baba blue or which of the blues? Can we move on?
Mami water.
Yeah, Mami water.
Okay, we'll probably come back to this, the conversation about the ministers. But there's a story.
I'm sorry, let's go.
There's a story I don't want us to miss here.
Yeah.
On the front page of the Punch.
Yeah.
Dangote refinery begins direct petrol sale to marketers. Is that good news, especially because Dangote and marketers, they've been in the news, I mean, for the past few weeks. We've seen marketers talking about how Dangote, NNPC says that they've ended their agreement with Dangote, but yet they've not been able to lift off from Dangote. But this is looking like good news, right?
I don't want to be optimistic.
Yet,
I don't want to be optimistic because the Dangote refinery, my hope was dashed totally because the expectation was so high from every Nigerian that this was going to be the game changer for us. That once Dangote Petroleum comes on stream, all our energy problem was going to be a thing of the past. But what have we seen? Instead of becoming a solution, it's becoming a problem for us because in the last 1 month or thereabouts, the prices of petroleum have gone up by 3 times. 3 times that was increased. Then the second part was the fact that even NNPC that was saying that they were buying petroleum from Dangote came out to tell Nigerians how much Dangote sold fuel to them, petrol to them, 889 naira per liter. Dangote said it was a lie. Nigerians are asking that question. How much did you see? How much? Now you say you know how much? Okay, how much you said? Till today they have refused to. He has gone further than that. The most shocking one was what happened last week, when we read on what we heard, and what it was not even alleged because they admitted to it that Dangote has sued NNPC and about 5 other private marketers.
Yeah. They've said that it's not a fresh suit and that by January.
It was September and relax. Let me just finish. 16th. What if that they sued them to stop importing petroleum products? Yeah. In what part of the world is that done? Even in China, even in communist countries. Yeah. Where will anybody want to have a monopoly on a product like petrol? It's part of the PIA. He said he's talking about which section of the PIA stated that petroleum product. Okay, let us even go further. It has now been realized that, and it is said that even Dangote cannot meet the demands that the money that has been paid by marketers to that Dangote cannot even meet that. So what are we talking about? So when you're talking of optimism, we were told that by the 1st of October that the naira to crude will become effective, and that Dangote will be buying crude with naira, no longer dollars. Between then and now, I know that NNPC said that they've supplied them. How has the prices come down? We've been told again that in the next few days, expect another rise in petrol. So, when you ask my optimism, I'm a very, very strong pessimist when it comes to this issue, until we are proven otherwise.
Okay, well, I mean, the next couple of months, we probably would see, these questions answered. And of course, some better understanding of where we are. Quickly share your thoughts on the Binance controversy. The court orders the release of Gambayan from prison as the federal government drops criminal charges against him. The charge against Binance still stays?
I know. I personally feel like to get to this. I know he's going to get to this. Because from the onset, we dropped the ball. We dropped the ball when somebody that was supposed to be in our custody, the main CEO of Binance, was allowed to go and have a Friday prayer. Somebody that was in detention, they allowed him to go and have a Friday prayer. And from there, the man disappeared into 2N. He went through our international airport, got his biodata, and they allowed him to fly out of the country. You are leaving the head. You are leaving a headache. You are running after lakpa, as we say in Yoruba. The boy, this one is just an errand boy. He's not the main person. And that has been the... So consistently, across board, you come to realize that to a point we're just chasing shadows. Until it's just like what is happening within our oil industry. We're talking of oil theft, and every day we go and discuss certain small distance. Meanwhile, we know the big players in the industry, those that are stealing, those that are bringing big vessels to our shore to steal. You see some of those ships, those vessels, some of them carry as much as about 3 million liters of crude oil. They steal from our point, and they go through the sea, and they disappear. And every day we are running after people that are refining. I'm not in support of what some of those young guys. If you understand what I'm trying to say, they refine 5,000 liters, 500 liters. But at the end of the day, somebody come with a big ship, put its anchor in the middle of the sea, then continue to. It takes from the research. At times it takes almost 1 month to be able to load those 3 million barrels of oil ships. Of crude, But till today, nobody has been arrested. The big boys have not been arrested. So that's the same thing happening. The guy is having some issues, I think, with his head. The last time I saw him, you saw he was moving around, whether he was pretending or because it is in this country.
EFCC has now admitted that they've been treating him, but they're not able to manage it as much. That he can't stand, he's still using the wheelchair. So I think the question is, why? I don't know how I feel about it. I feel that if, for example, and I hope that New Central never has to be in that position, that New Central is in the wrong, or an organization is in the wrong for whatever reason, you picking one staff of the organization and holding that staff of the organization, is that the right way to go about it, right? And then even when the person starts to ask for medical help, they could see whether he's lying or not is not our business. You could see that this person is struggling to stand. If a Nigerian citizen was treated that way abroad, we would be happy with that.
I totally agree with you, because as I said, because I even saw the guy was coming out of the court and he was asking a prison officer to
support him.
Just support me. And the guy just said, now you sabi all those kind of, in the full glare of the, so anybody, that is fundamental, his fundamental human rights is being stamped on pot. So I think that the judge was right by asking that. I would have thought that the judge would have said, okay, go and give him adequate treatment. Anywhere you can find it in the country, we still have hospitals in this country that can treat any ailment. If they can't find in Abuja, they can come to Lagos. We have so many of it. That is my personal opinion. But in the wisdom of the judge, our authorities have dropped the ball, and probably the life of the guy was at stake. And they not only that, they don't also forget that they say some level of diplomacy also came into play. I think he's a British. I don't know where he came from. But the fact is that we have dropped the ball, and I just see that. Then they say the case will continue. With who now? I don't know who are they going to prosecute? Or who are they?
They can still have a case against Binance. Yeah, I think
we are not the only country that have had issue with Binance. There are some countries, I think India, China, some countries have had India, and they've extracted some certain amount from Binance, and they've paid. Why is our own very, 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 very difficult to handle? And that's that is the issue.
Prove our case. It's not simply having a case. You need to be able to prove your case. I think some of the allegations back then, made it sound like Binance was responsible somehow, some way for, our currency issues and our exchange rate issues, back then.
Part of our problem is always policy direction. You saw the problem we had with crypto,
yes,
where the CBN came out and blah blah. Crypto is not thriving. They have not recognized crypto again as a means of transaction. So what are we talking about? So, but for me, I think that issue was not properly handled. And if the court in its wisdom has said that he should be allowed to go and should be treated, then that is what the court has said. If you have anything against it, then you go to appeal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then we're talking about there was an issue that you raised on that, and that was also the issue. I totally support the idea of scrapping the Ministry of Nigeria. I totally support it. Because I've seen that ministry is more like a pipeline through which a lot of people are just taking money. Go and look at the Niger data. And within the period that the Ministry of Niger data, go and ask yourself, what has been achieved? I start to be corrected. Go and see what have they done. So I personally believe that is a right stroke for me. Whatever anybody says, the clerk or whoever is whatever. Now we have a ministry that has been saddled with the responsibility of developing every part of the country. We now have 6, what do they call them, development commissions, yes, as it were. Then let's see how we go with that. If we need to pump in more, not also forget that, let me land on this. Not also forget that we also have derivation funds.
Yeah, I was about to point that out.
Yes, we have 13% derivation fund to the oil producing states. Yeah. So what happened to it? So you have 13% derivation fund. You are creating a Ministry of Niger Data. You're also creating an NDDC again. What is that?
It's not just the Ministry of Niger Delta that has failed.
Yes.
It's generally everybody who has held managerial position in any level concerning Niger Delta has failed, including governors.
Let me even put it. Have you forgotten off the mic?
Yeah, I mean,
have you guys? It's not easily forgetting this country. That was a period where the finances of the NDDC and Niger Delta was being proved at the National Assembly. And somebody decided to just be choking and just told us that he fainted, and that was the end of that.
But it's pretty much the same thing. This is the reason, because I keep arguing that if we don't see that we're actually doing things different, don't expect any result. Because even if you set up a new ministry to handle these development commissions, there's the Northeast Development Commission. There's going to be, I think, Southwest is already.
There's Southwest. There's Southeast.
Yes. And if we do not see that the thinking is different, the attitude is different, the steps that have been taken are different, nothing is going to change. It's going to just be like that.
Let me tell you where the problem is. Our problem on some of these issues, especially like issues like this, is National Assembly. They are one of their job is oversight on the executive and issue of project, following the money. So money was budgeted for this project. Now, can you show us line by line? Of course, those are item project. They are items. Oh, I'm going to do so this thing. They said the money. So. Have you been able to follow it one by and going on oversight and making sure that what those money that were voted for those projects were utilized for those? But what do? They call for a hearing and the rest of them. Get their Ghana must go and get fed and decide to just let go. When people are talking as the salary of members of National Assembly is 12 million, and they come there, I laugh. That is not where they're making their money. All of us know where they're making their money.
Anyway, we need to go. Thank you very much, CKN, for stopping by and sharing your thoughts with us on these stories. And wish you a very interesting day ahead.
Reshuffle.
The meeting of the Edo State Joint Transition Committee was stalled on Tuesday following disagreements on some documents necessary for the seating. The committee, comprising members of Governor Godwin Obaseki's outgoing administration and Governor-elect Monday Okpewolo's team, was unable to proceed as APC members boycotted the meeting. Patrick Ihariali, secretary of the APC Transition Committee, stated that they had requested advance copies of documents 24 hours before the meeting, but the provided documents fell short.
However, Chris Nekari, the Commissioner for Communication and Orientation, countered that and of course, countered the APC's inquiries. It says that the inquiries are beyond the Transition Committee's scope, and some details will be included in the governor's handover notes. The disagreement has stalled the transition process, with the APC committee forwarding a letter to the Obaseki team requesting the necessary documents to resume the meeting. Joining us to discuss this is the press secretary to the Ikpoba local government area, Esosa Ewere. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Mr. Ewere, can you hear us?
Good morning.
Okay, great. Great to
I can hear you. Good morning.
Yeah. So I mean, let's get some clarity as to what exactly is going on. The APC side says that they are struggling with getting transition documents, and of course, a cooperation from the current government in Edo State. The Edo State government, Chris Nekari, says that's not true. What do you know is going on?
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I do strongly want to believe that the APC team knows what they are doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't know on what authority they are requesting for what they are requesting for. What we thought that the transition committee would be discussing would be on sustaining the reforms, sustaining initiatives and innovations, how and methodologies to which such reforms can be sustained in Edo, to the extent that whether the incoming administration is of a different political party, but development must continue, because that is more like a statutory matter. So, but when you now keep making inquisitions about certain sensitive materials, on what authority are you making such
what materials
requests?
Are you speaking of now? Can you give us examples? What materials are they asking for?
I think as of yesterday, we heard that they were asking for certain financial materials on how projects have been, monies have been expended on projects and all of that. So I do strongly believe that those issues are not, you have not even entered government. Up until November 12th, the governor remains governor. The Obaseki-led administration remains intact up until November 12th. So I think whatever inquisition you may want to make, you could do that upon taking taking up the office of governor as the executive governor of Edo State. So you can now sit on authority to be making certain requests. The players of the Obaseki-led administration are still here. After November 12th, they are still going to be here. We're all at those. Nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's running out of town. So you could make requests that you want to make upon being sworn in as governor. But a transition committee is to discuss how power can be transmitted from an outgoing government to an incoming government peacefully and without grounds. That is the essence of creating a transition government. These are the things we have done in the last 4 or 8 years, as it is in the case of Edo. In the last 8 years, these are the things we have done. This is where we are coming from, and see where we are going as a state, no longer as a government. We have built a foundation for sustained developments. We have built a foundation for sustained reforms. We have built a foundation for sustained human capacity development, for security. There's a local security on the ground that we are building. So we strongly believe that when you are coming in, or when you eventually get in as a government, you will be able to sustain these ideas and by extension, expand the frontiers for more development to come in. So you have not even got into governments. You have not even been sworn in. You are not yet a governor. You are just a governor-elect. So I want to strongly believe that the team knows what they are doing. The team is prepared for governance. The team is ready to take Edo from the very admirable point that the Obaseki-led administration has placed it, and they are ready to even do more. So that is what they should be worried about. That is what they should worry about by now. At this time, you must be seen to be ready for governance.
All right. The transition committee. Yes, we are. The transition committee will be meeting today. They've denied a number of these allegations and said that they will make their position known after their meeting today. But we know that the PDP is also very keen, or has been saying that they would recover their quote-unquote stolen mandate. And we know that the current administration obviously isn't maybe as excited about the outcome of the result. Would you say that, should the PDP not be able to prove its case in court, that the current administration is willing to render every and all help that the incoming administration will require in this case, the governor-elect, Monday Okpebholo, would you say that they'll be willing to work hand in hand to take Edo State to the next level?
Well, we are already in court.
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
We are already in court. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead.
We're already in court. Our petition, we have our petition we have submitted our petition in the courts, and the APC has also been served, and I think they have 21 days to respond, and then after that there's going to be another 5 days for a review of our petition and their response. And then I think the tribunal is going to kick off around November, maybe after after the swearing in. We are even we have done our petition since the last 1 or 2 weeks, and the world knows how the election was. It was an obviously manipulated election in favor of the APC. Even players of the APC, they are very much aware of that. But that is not the issue for now. The issue for now is that the matter is going to court, and we are going to follow it up to a logical conclusion. But in any case, government has to go on. The Obaseki-led administration is still on up until November 12th. So there is no there has to be no vacuum in governments. By November 12th, there is going to be a new government in Edo. That is certain. But before that time, the government that is already serving has to go on, which is the Obaseki-led administration. And there is nothing to hide within the governments. Projects are scattered across the state, within the nooks and crannies of the states. This is the first state to implement the 40,000 naira minimum wage, which a few months ago was jacked up to 70,000. You can see sister states now borrowing from the Edo initiative, improving the salary scale for civil servants in their various states. Edo has set the pace. This is a state that has an educational program, an Edo-based educational program running. It has been running for years and is still on. So there are various initiatives that we expect the incoming government to be able to sustain, because we think that the pedestal that the governor has put Edo has to be sustained. You can't take us back. So that is also the essence. That also forms one of the essence for transition, for the transition committees. 24 from the serving government, 24 from the incoming governments, making a 48-member transition committee, just to understand the pros and cons, the methodologies upon which this government has been running, and possibly sustain it for improved cross-cultural development. So it's not a period to come and ask this and ask that and engage in unnecessary brickbats and all that. The meeting that was supposed to hold on Tuesday, the Tuesday or Monday, they did not show up. They shunned the meeting.
Yeah.
Rather, they are holding their own separate meeting somewhere in town. With who are they engaging with? You cannot engage yourselves. You must engage with the serving governments, because it is this government that is going to be handing over to you in a few weeks from now. So you must engage it. That's the platform that the Obaseki-led government created, and that is the norm all over the world.
Yeah.
So there's nothing hidden about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wanted you to once again, if you can, in 1 minute, also speak about the elections. You said that everybody agrees that the elections were fraudulent, including even the APC. What are your expectations from the court? Do you expect that the court will be able to grant you victory? Are you expecting that at all?
Of course, we are expecting the courts to be able to do justice to the matter, or be seen to be doing justice to the matter. The election, you can see the reactions from all over the world. Only yesterday, those in diaspora, particularly in the UK, they protested. They protested to the UK authority as part of waves of protesting against the fraudulent election. You have seen Atido Peter said he has condemned the election. You have seen former President Goodluck Jonathan condemning the election. You have seen Iyaga, one of the groups accredited, one of the over 30 or 40 groups accredited to monitor to observe the election. They have also discredited the elections. So if you take a critical look, at the post-election reactions, they are not positive. They are on the negative side, and that calls for questioning as to the credibility and integrity, fairness of that election. So we do strongly believe that the courts will be able to put the matter in proper perspective, and then be able to do justice. And then we'll be hopeful again that democracy is actually here to stay in our country. especially in the area of institutional reforms, which, of course, we are all calling for now, particularly INEC.
All right. Asosai, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We will follow up and see how things turn out in Edo State from the transition, of course, to the new government and the tribunal as well. Look forward to speaking with you again. All right.
Thank you.
Now, we've shared with you what many of our analysts have said on major stories across Nigeria today, but let's share with you now what Nigerians are saying.
It doesn't come as a surprise, the rejigging that has happened in President Bola Tinubu's cabinet, because for a while now, there had been speculations about a likely reshuffling in the cabinet. Maybe what might come as a surprise are some of the names that are either there or not there. Nigerians, of course, have taken to social media to share their thoughts regarding the ministers, the ones who have been fired, the ones who have been hired, and the ones that have been reshuffled. Uju Ken Ohane, the former Minister of Women Affairs, has been fired, and so has Lola Adejoke, the former Minister of Tourism. We also have the Minister of Education, Tahir Maman, who was also fired. Abdullahi Gwazo, Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development, has been fired. And finally, the Minister of Youth Development, Jamila Ibrahim, has been fired. Another minister that has been fired, but wasn't mentioned, would definitely be Betta Edu, who has been replaced. And whilst there have been more ministers, so 5 fired, 7 hired, and 10 reshuffled, there are names that have been asked. Someone like the Minister of Power, a number of Nigerians have questioned why his name wasn't on the list. And I'll be sharing with you some of the tweets in that regard. And there are certain people who aren't even part of the cabinet that their names have come up in conversations. But enough of my talk. Let's head to social media and see what Nigerians are saying regarding this. Our first tweet is from Kaluaja. He says, Minister of the Blue Economy was not sacked, or is the second batch loading? That's the first reaction we have. And then we have, somebody said the ministers that were sacked are those who are not politically useful and not because of performance. Do you agree? Well, that's a question for you to answer. Sacked 5 ministers, appointed 7 new ministers, then reassigned 10 others. The more you look, the less you see. Chakamanje. I've never known how to pronounce this word, but yes. That's from N6. Wild jubilation at the Ministry of Women Affairs as Tinubu sacks Minister of Women Affairs, Barrister Uju Kennedy. Why people can't be happy this much, according to Indamola? And maybe people who are in her ministry can share with us why there was so much rejoicing. Is it because she was firm, or is it because she wasn't working at all? Wemimo Adewuni says, know your new ministers. The former Minister of Women Affairs, Uju Kennedy, had it coming, but this new one get as it be. She was MS for Police Affairs, who joined anti-end bad governance protest then, like she protested against Nigerians that protested against bad governance. You don't mean it. Wow. Anyway, moving away from that, is it not political confusion to sack 5 ministers and appoint 7? There is hardship. Many families can't pay children's school fees. To feed Nawahala for many families, no electricity, but the electricity tariff is beyond many families, no petrol, and cost of same petrol is very high. And I think that this tweet is driving in line with the conversation about why we're firing 5 and hiring 7. Basically, it doesn't seem like the cost of cutting the cost of governance is a conversation that the administration is currently paying any form of attention to. John Igwe says, the non-performing ministers are still there with Tinubu. He has not broken any new ground. And the next tweet we have is from Paul of Truth, who says, it's a move for new hands to touch money. What magic are they coming to do to improve the situation? Well, Chief Collapser of National Grid, Bayo Adelabu, is not supposed to be the minister. It's not supposed to be the Minister of Power. He has failed woefully at his duty. I see favoritism displayed here. Wow. I didn't know that Bayo Adelabu had a new title. And the final tweet from Ms. Pell, she said, after all the rascality, nothing for FFK and Reno. Oh, I forgot. Oh, wow. Anyway, that is shots fired there. Oh, we still have another one. Dikpa Ojide says, President Bola Tinubu used 1 stone to kill 3 birds with the appointment of Bianca Ojukwu. She has held a similar role previously and did a decent job. Second, this should further unite the country. Third, it might win some folks on his side from her zone. I wish her luck. Well, of course, Bianca Ojukwu is a diplomat, and many people are expecting that she will do her due diligence. She will do a great job. But yes, some have cited the fact that it might be a political move. At the end of the day, Nigerians just want to be able to live a better quality of life. Nigerians want leaders who are there not because they're trying to fulfill their own personal agenda or fill their pockets or eat their own part of the national cake. But they're there because they genuinely have a vision that is aligned with the current administration's vision for Nigeria, and that they have practical solutions to move Nigeria from where it is to where it should be. But eyes are watching, Nigerians are watching. We will keep following up with this story, and let us know what your thoughts are. Are you excited about any of the appointments, any of the firings or reshuffling that has happened by the president with the cabinet? And what are your thoughts regarding the Minister of Petroleum still being there? But that's all that we can take this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. Thank you for your time with us. I am Olive Emodi.